Palestinian counter-offensive was decades in the making. Everyone has forgotten about the Palestinians. The terms were set over 2 decades, and perhaps Bay's focus is it was the attack on the Israeli-Saudi talks that sparked the outbreak of war, with organized and trained Palestinian groups storming the fence with assisting an excavator as clashes continue between Palestinian groups and Israeli forces in Gaza City. It was the deadly attack launched by Hamas in the past few days. Remain a reminder to Israel, the United States and the world that Palestine still matters. Airstrikes were carried out by the center in occupied Gaza and penetrated the heavily guarded fence into Israel, killing hundreds of Israelis. Yes, this is a historic level of violence in the country. The Israeli counterattack has led and will inevitably lead to more death and destruction. For the Palestinians and the intensification of the occupation, as Hamas launched an unprecedented strike on Israel. This comes after nearly 2 decades of the neglect by the United States and world leaders of more than 2 million people who live in Gaza and who they are suffering from a humanitarian nightmare, as its airspace, borders, and sea are under Israeli control, and the attack comes in the middle of a continuing failure to deal with the dangerous situation experienced by the Palestinians in the West Bank, where the Israeli government has established over the past year. The brutal daily pain of the occupation has escalated. Cases of hostility by the Israeli security forces and the 2 homelands. The violence of the Israelis against the Palestinians began to rise, starting from the massacre in the city of Hawar to a new pace of deadly raids on Jenin. Israeli government ministers pursue annexation policies and exchange enthusiastic speeches. Both of them incite more violent reactions on the part of the Palestinians and appear at a time when very large armed groups have emerged. A hand that claims to wear the mantle of the Palestinian cause, and the regular presence of Israeli Jews to pray in the mosque has led to Al-Aqsa in Jerusalem, one of the holiest sites in Islam, has increased pressure on the situation. One of the Hamas leaders mentioned many of these factors in his statement, but the reality of the ongoing occupation did not feature prominently in his dealings. American or Arab leaders have been supportive of the region in recent years, even as conditions have deteriorated for the Palestinians. The question must be asked to the Israeli government, the Biden administration, and the Arab leaders: how did they forget the Palestinians? How did they ignore Gaza in this way? Isn't it in the law of nature that for every reaction there is a reaction opposite in direction and equal in magnitude? President Joe Biden did not retreat from the policy of his predecessor, Donald Trump, which was to put aside the Palestine issue, and instead there is enormous capital to normalize Israel's relations with Arab countries, regardless of the extent of the Israeli government's policies. In the current diplomatic equation led by the United States, there is room for the Palestinians, except for talk of simple concessions to alleviate daily insults. Biden recently said, as he does most likely, the United States remains determined to maintain the path leading to a 2-state solution by negotiations between Israel and the Palestinian Liberation Organization have been frozen for a year. 2014 during the era of President Barack Obama, and most Palestinian analysts acknowledge at this stage that the American administration since President Bill Clinton, it has been engaged in a failed and unequal process that would never have allowed, on its terms, the state of Palestine to be touched. Sovereignty and over him. Therefore, the symbolism of Hamas breaching the Israeli security barriers and wreaking havoc in Israel, including the kidnapping of Israeli soldiers, as well as civilians, will resonate throughout Palestine, the Arab world, and beyond, and it was an insistence Israel's conflict with Hamas, alongside the conflict between Hezbollah and Israel in 2006-2014 is an exchange of missiles and artillery to a large extent, even within decades of the large-scale Arab-Israeli wars. The battles were taking place abroad, as no Arab army had entered the occupied territories of Israel since the 1948 war. This is a surprise. A huge strategy, and Israel and the United States wished the departure. The Palestinians said that the horrific bloodshed that they witnessed and are witnessing and the continuous attacks from both sides shed light on your role to do that, and here we explain how Biden made a mistake in the plot against Gaza. Palestinians are rarely represented in panels and keynotes. Key players in Biden administration bring in. They forget the core of the conflict, its motives, and its solution. There is no heavenly religion, moral custom, or even the mere human conscience that would accept killing defenseless civilians and the destruction of infrastructure. May everyone wake up from their obstinacy and tyranny, so that peace and security may come to all. May God bless everyone. His bar and God Almighty sent down religions and law so that there might be peace and security among mankind. He warned in every book and law against injustice and tyranny among mankind. We call on world leaders to review their calculations and work to stop the shedding of blood for souls whose killing God has forbidden, except in truth. We call for guidance through mercy, those afflicted with healing, and the world through guidance to the path of truth and justice in the end. Please spread the video to all your friends and subscribe to the channel. Peace be upon you.